I talk a lot about the business of surface design in my videos, but today I'm going back to basics. Lately, I've been creating a lot of repeating patterns as I build my brand new Spoonflower shop. And that's got me assessing the fastest ways to create patterns in Adobe Illustrator, which is my program of choice. If you're also an Illustrator head, let me walk you through the methods and the pros and cons of each. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Elizabeth Silver, and I've been designing patterns and illustrations for over 20 years through staff jobs, freelance clients, and art licensing partners. On this channel, I give designers insights into the surface pattern and art for product industry, from tips on making stronger art collections to pitching your work to industry trends. Subscribe if that sounds useful to you. I'm always working smarter and not harder when I can. And as I started building my licensing portfolio in 2013, I quickly realized that there was no need to put every pattern into technical, seamless repeat. I've got loads of patterns in my portfolio, and until a pattern is actually licensed, it doesn't have to be in seamless repeat if I don't have another purpose except for showing it in my portfolio. I did it with some because I do love repeats. And of course, I did it whenever a design got licensed for fabric or other end products that needed seamless files. But I have a lot of designs that only suggest repeats. This year, I finally decided to offer my art on Spoonflower. Check out the link below to see my new shop. I'm slowly adding more and more of my patterns to the shop, which is really exciting. And for the majority of designs on that platform, art needs to be in technical repeat to work on fabrics and wallpaper. So I've been digging in and trying to figure out if my tried and true method of pattern making in Adobe Illustrator is really the best, or if I'm just stuck in my old lady ways. So let's take a look at those three methods. I'm going to walk you through them, and we're going to see which one really is the best. This is a design that I created for my licensing portfolio, and it is not in seamless repeat. This is like a washi tape design that goes with an arts and crafts supplies collection. And you get the idea that it could be a repeat, but it is not in technical repeat. So there are multiple ways that you can create repeats in Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to show you the first way right now with this pattern. My favorite way to do this, the way that I learned to do this, and the way that I continue to do this is to use the artboard as the repeat tile. So right now, if I double click on the artboard, I see that it is 6.31 inches. And that's all well and good, but right now, having created this design, I have art that comes off the artboard. And it's actually a little easier to put something into repeat when you have some space. So what I'm going to do is double click this and change this to 8 inches. This is going to be for Spoonflower. It's digitally printed. A lot of things are digitally printed these days, and so repeat size doesn't actually matter. So what I'm going to first do is, because I have some white elements, it's important for me to make sure that this background is bigger so that I can see everything clearly. I'm going to delete these extra icons. And then I'm going to take all of the designs, all of the motifs, all of the icons, and I'm going to bring it up to this corner. So once this is fully in repeat, I'm seeing that this is a little bit long here. Once this is fully in repeat, what's happening on this line will also happen on this line. And what's happening along the top will also happen along the bottom. So in this case, my repeat is a square. It's 8 by 8. So what I'm going to do to make this really, really easy, and this is my favorite trick, is I'm going to go to Edit, Preferences, General, and I'm going to change my keyboard increment to, it's already at 8 inches, but usually keyboard increments are at like 0.01 or something like that. And that means whenever you use the arrow key, things are moving at 0.01 inches. But I'm going to change this to 8 inches. Okay. Now, if my repeat size was not square, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to work with that as well. But top to bottom, left to right, I want everything to repeat at 8 inches. And I'm going to bring things so that they're hanging off the artboard, off the repeat tile, because that's going to make things easier. Then I'm going to select everything except for the ground. Right now I don't need the ground, so I have that layer locked. I'm going to hold down, I'm on a PC, so things might be slightly different for a Mac. I'm going to hold down Alt, which is going to copy anything that I do, and I'm going to push the right arrow key. And because of the increments, everything is moved 8 inches. So now we're seeing this rainbow and this rainbow are at the edge. And I'm going to stop there for a minute. And what I'm going to do is fill in these areas and make sure that everything looks good. So I do even have some overlap, so I'm probably going to change things. So I'm going to make some adjustments here. The next step for me would be to select everything, push V, which gets it ready for moving, push Alt, and push the down arrow, and that copies everything 8 inches. This works because my repeat tile is currently square and I still have my arrow increments set to 8. But now that I'm doing this, I'm seeing that this area, I could probably make a smaller repeat and make less work for myself. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to change the artboard to 7. This is how I used to do it before I learned about keyboard increments. So click V and then click Enter, and that brings up the exact toolbox for moving. And I will set horizontal at 0 and vertical at 7. So as you remember, my keyboard increments are set up for 8 inches, so I could change that, but I'm just going to do this, which is to set it up at 7. Now, positive numbers go down, and if I made this negative, it would go up. I'm going to do positive, and I'm going to do copy. Okay, so that makes a much smaller area for me to fill in with different icons. I'm going to fill this in, and then I'm going to have an 8x7 repeat. Once I've got a repeat that I'm happy with, I usually delete a lot of these extras along the side because sometimes things have been slightly altered and I just don't want them there. So take out some of this stuff here. And then to make sure I really like this, I go down to the ground layer. I select the marquee tool and I tap once in order to make an exact square that is rectangle that is 8 by 7 inches. Once I've created that, I'm going to send that, arrange, send to back, and I'm going to make it fully transparent. This is so that I can make a swatch. So now, having everything unlocked that I need, I'm going to select everything, including that rectangle that has no fill and no stroke. And I'm going to drag the whole thing into swatches. All right, so now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to make a really huge one. So now I can check and see if I like this repeat. I'm seeing here, this is kind of like a big gap where there's not so many gaps other places, so I might adjust this. But essentially, once I save this, then I have an exact repeat tile. And I personally like to work this way to have the extra ground, the extra icons, and be able to move things around. But testing the repeat, there is some annoyance in doing it this way for sure, because now I'm going to adjust this and I'm going to have to create a new swatch and try it out and see how it looks and then go back and forth. I can see how there are some drawbacks of doing this method. But this is the way that I am most comfortable doing, and I have created some shortcuts along the way, that increment one. So I'm pretty happy with this method in general. All right, this is another print in my art class series that I need to put into repeat. And again, I kind of designed off the artboard so that I could crop it to the artboard, and it looked like a general repeat, but it wasn't actually. So what I'm going to do now is show you the next method. I'm going to select all of these icons, go to Object, Pattern, Make. And this automatically made a pattern swatch, but I'm going to need to adjust it, of course. And it made the current swatch as big as this selection tool. So that width happens to be 5.172. The height happens to be 4.36 inches, which is all well and good, but I think we can do better. So let's see what we've got here. Pushing OK opens it in the pattern tool icon, and we're seeing a lot of gaps here. And right now we have the rest of the copies dimmed to 70%. I can even make it 40%. So you're seeing what's the main pattern tile and what's repeated out. First of all, this is really tight, so I want to make the height a little higher. So I'm going to go to 4.5 and see what that looks like. That's a little wide, so maybe 4.4. Yeah, that looks about even. Now if I make this 100%, it's about the right height. The next thing that I want to do is move this spacing in. I could just fill it in with other triangles, but I want to see what we can do with this pattern tool. So I'm going to make this actually smaller than 5. Maybe I'm going to do 4.7 and see what that does. So that brings things in, that fills in almost everything. We have a couple things that are overlapping that we would need to deal with, but we're looking pretty good. The only thing is I want to make sure that things are evenly spaced. So I don't want that exact overlap. Maybe I'm going to do 4.8 instead. A little better here, a little better here, maybe 8.5. And that brings it out. This one we'll have to deal with later. I'm not quite sure, but this one and this one, everything is looking a little bit better. So I'm pretty happy with that. What I'm going to do here is delete this one. I'm going to delete this one, and it's looking pretty good. The only thing is this is lining up top to bottom a lot. So I think I'm going to select this whole thing and move it a little bit so it's a little more off-centered. And we have the option of making this a brick repeat, column, which is half drop, hex, which does a whole interesting thing, hex by row. I think I'll stick with the grid. So now I do need to fill in here because as we see, as this repeats out, this has a lot more space along the edges than it does in the middle of the pattern. When I zoom out, I'm going to now make this 100 so I can see about spacing. All right, this is still kind of white, and this double blue happens twice, so I'm going to adjust that. All right, that looks good. So 4.85, 4.4. I'm going to say done. I'm going to change the artboard to 4.84 and 4.4. It was 8.5. Okay. Move this out of the way. I'm going to create a square here and fill it with the pattern. So I'm happy with this. And then the thing is, the ground color was already white. The problem that I've found most often with using the pattern tool is that when I have artwork that is on a colored ground and maybe has white elements within it, that's when I start running into trouble. So when I use the pattern tool, it
makes the ground its own motif, which then overlaps with other motifs, and it just doesn't work out very well. There are definitely ways to get around that. I'm not going to show you in this video, but they just require way more steps and just don't feel that intuitive or useful. So keep that in mind when you're working with the pattern tool.
All right, this is another pattern from my art class collection that needs to go and repeat. And I'm going to show you my final method for putting things into repeat in Adobe Illustrator. So diagonals can be kind of tricky, especially when it's like a multi-stripe like this, where this orange needs to line up with this orange, and it can get kind of complicated. So the thing that I'm going to use for this is something that I created now I think it's about a year ago, and it's one of my most popular products, and it's called the Pattern Wireframe Library. And I don't know why I didn't create it earlier, because honestly, I use it a lot in my own work. Now that I have it, I use it. So you can get this product. I will put the link in the description. I know that the people who have purchased it already have loved it, and it works in all types of programs. It works in roster programs like Procreate and Photoshop, and it also works in Adobe Illustrator. So let me show you how that's going to work. This is the PDF. I'm going to open with Illustrator. And I already know, so there's lots of different wireframes in here, but I already know I'm looking for the diagonal one, which happens to be number 10. So I'm going to open that in Adobe Illustrator. Again, if you don't have a vector program, that is fine. There are other ways to do it. There's instructions in there and everything like that. But for today, this is what I'm grabbing. So all of the patterns in the wireframe library are already in repeat, and they are 8 inches by 8 inches. So I'm going to copy this onto a new layer. And as I said, it's 8 inches by 8 inches. So I need to find out where we're at with what I was thinking this was going to be. So let's see. 4 by 4. Okay, so I'm going to stick with 4 by 4. And what I'm going to do is take this pattern wireframe and shrink it down. So I'm going to go to transform. It's already at 8 by 8. I'm going to make this 4 by 4. Enter. You can also do that by scaling to 50%, whatever works for you. So I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to put this right up. I know it's kind of hard to see with all this pattern, but let me get it right into the artboard. And then right now this has a clipping mask on it. So I'm going to clipping mask release so I can see all these stripes. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to see where all these stripes line up, because I do have multicolors. This was initially designed for if you were going to have all the same color, or you were going to line up icons in these spaces, but I need a little more information. And actually, this is making me think of an upgrade I'm going to do to this pattern wireframe library. But what I'm going to do now is change the colors of all these stripes so that I can find out which ones line up in the repeats. So I'm just picking random colors. And like I said, I'm going to do this to my wireframe library afterwards so that everyone can know this. But right now, all of these are different stripes. I'm going to use the technique that I used in the previous by pushing V and enter. And I'm going to do 4 inches, 0, copy. Because what I want to do is see which lines line up with which lines. So as I can see, if I made this red line a different line than this green line, the pattern would not repeat properly. So what I'm going to do is change this to red, this to orange, this to yellow, and this to blue, and I think that's going to get us in a good spot. I'm going to change this yellow stripe to a different color, maybe a green. so that's really easy to see. I'm actually going to make these a little thicker. So these are going to be my guidelines as I get these stripes in order. This looks mad, so I'm going to make this lower level a lighter opacity so I can really see the guideline. And I don't really mind changing the angle of this a little. So I'm gonna change the angle slightly so that everything lines up here. There we go. Okay. So next, I'm going to make this a little darker so I can see what I'm doing and see where we're at. This red line here, this red guideline, currently has a double purple. This green has a double purple, and this red is close to a double purple as well. So I think this is going to work out pretty good. I just have to adjust the spacing a little bit. And then the next thing I'm going to do is select this all, and I want to get rid of these edges all the way around so that I can connect them a little bit better. And honestly, I just do this the easy way. I select the eraser key, I make the brush really big, and I seriously just erase it. Yes, you could like clip it, you could do, there's lots of ways to do it. Everyone works differently, but I'm just going to erase it. And I think I'm even going to erase a little bit up to this line because this part is going to come over, and the same situation here. I'm going to come right up to this line, and now we should be pretty close. I'm going to make this full color, and now I'm going to go back to 4 and 0 and copy. And now I just need to work to get some of these lines a little bit adjusted. Some of the scallops need to work. The blue lines up really good. I just need to like pull this point. As you can see, these pink ones aren't lining up quite as well. And I think that's because they were in the middle of the template. And so since I was just guessing the middle, I didn't quite guess right. So what I can do is make sure I grab the same piece and just adjust a little bit here. So now I'm going to go in and fix all this, and then I'll do the vertical side. Okay, I fixed this edge, and honestly, what I like to do when I do these things is slide them over a little bit because we know that this in the middle is definitely the same. Sometimes I make a little bit of adjustment that comes into here, and I want to make sure that it actually reflects what's happening. So I sometimes slide things over. Now I'm going to just repeat the process on the top and bottom by again clicking V, 0, 4, copy. And once again, things line up pretty well now. Everything's sort of in order. Just got to get some of those little scallops together, and I'll be all set with this pattern. All right, that edge looks good. So now I'm just going to do the same thing I did before, which is shift it up just a little bit to make sure that I'm getting the part that I want. That's definitely in repeat. And then add my background back in and double check my work by adding a transparent square 4x4 object, arrange, send to back, make it transparent, and we're going to select the whole thing, and we're going to drag this in to create a swatch and make sure that this is all in repeat. All right, looks good. So that was actually a lot easier, even though I still had to figure out the multi-stripe situation. It was a lot easier than trying to line up a diagonal repeat. And that's what I love about the pattern wireframe library. I have some organic patterns as well but I really like the geometric patterns because they're already in repeat and I don't have to fiddle with something that is just standard. So I love that. Definitely check out the pattern wireframe library. All right, those are my 3 methods. I've been using back and forth, trying different things out as I put things in repeat. I hope you found that super helpful as you put your art into seamless repeat, and I hope you learned a few tricks. If you want to grab my pattern wireframe library, I know you will love it. It's been something people have been super happy with. The link is in the description below. Also, if you want to visit my Spoonflower shop and grab some home decor items or some fabric in any of these patterns, I have the link for that below as well. So check it out.